Hello, boys and girls. We have been talking about some really cool stories in Bible recently. We saw all about how God brought the Israelites, his chosen people, out of the land of Egypt, across the Red Sea, and into the wilderness. God called Moses to lead his people through this time, and God provided everything they need, from manna falling from the sky to water coming out of a rock. God always provided what his people needed. And yesterday, we talked about how the people of Israel finally got to enter the promised land, that land that God had promised to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They finally were allowed in. This land was the land of Canaan. And can you guess who lived in the land of Canaan? That's right, the Canaanites. Now, the Canaanites, they weren't the same as the Israelites. These people were the people who already lived in the land. The Israelites were God's chosen people. Last time we talked, Moses had died because he was not allowed into the promised land. But God had brought a new leader up in the people of Israel, and his name was Joshua. But we're not even talking about him today. Our story happens actually after Joshua died. The people of Israel didn't have such a great leader anymore. In fact, they were not doing what God commanded them to do. So, the angel of the Lord came down and had a conversation with the people of Israel. And that's where our story starts. The angel of the Lord, God, he went from Gilgal to Bochim, and he told the people of Israel, I brought you out of the land of Egypt, and I brought you to this promised land, this land that I promised to give your fathers. I said I will never break my covenant with you. And I said that you should not make any covenants with the people of this land, the Canaanites. You should destroy their altars to their other gods, because you should only worship me. But you have not obeyed me. You have not obeyed my commands. What is this that you have done? Now I will not make the people of this land leave. In fact, they will be a bother to you, and you will be tempted by their gods. Now, as soon as the angel of the Lord had finished talking, the people of Israel cried. They were so distraught because they had not obeyed God's voice. This is not the first time we have seen the Israelites disobey God's commands. In fact, almost every story we've talked about, the people of Israel disobeyed God in some way. But we know that our God is a God full of grace, and he gives the people of Israel blessings they don't deserve. But we've also been talking about when people make mistakes and they choose to sin, God gives punishments to the people, and we see him giving a punishment here to the people of Israel. Remember when Moses disobeyed God? Remember when he didn't speak to the rock, but instead he hit the rock twice? Yeah, his punishment was that he was not allowed to enter the promised land. And here we see the Israelites disobeying God's command. They did not obey God. They made covenants with other people, the Canaanites, and they even worshiped other gods. So their punishment was that God was not going to help them defeat those other nations. In fact, those other nations would actually defeat the people of Israel sometimes, and the people of Israel would continue to worship other gods. But don't worry. In the next few days, we're going to talk about how God also brings these really cool people that are going to help rescue the people of Israel. So, your job is to tell this story that we just talked about, the conversation between God, the angel of the Lord, and the Israelites. You're going to make a video of you telling the story. You can act out the story, maybe with a friend, a brother and a sister that you're with, or your parents, or you can use different characters that you have at your house, maybe a spoon even as a person. You can use characters to act out your story, or you can just tell the story. It's up to you. But your job is to make a video telling this story, and then you can upload it onto the assignment at Google Classroom so I can watch you tell the story. And we'll talk about it when we're back in school tomorrow. Have fun!